Disclaimer: the insights and opinions shared on this show are for educational and entertainment purposes only. Before making any financial decisions, we recommend consulting with a qualified professional to better understand your unique financial situation. Welcome to the Investors Playbook Show, where our mission is clear: empowerment through financial education. We firmly believe that financial freedom isn't a privilege, it's a right that's available to everybody. Each week, we dive deep into the world of finances, breaking down complex topics and making them accessible and actionable for everyone. As we grow this community, we invite you to join us on this journey. Why tune in? Because together, we're not just learning about wealth, we're building a movement, reshaping futures, and proving that with the right knowledge, financial success is within everyone's reach. It's time to get off the sidelines. Let's go.
Welcome to Investors Playbook, episode 40. I'm Cornell Rowling.
I'm Deshaun Edwards, and today we have a very special guest with us today, Sam Dolciné, founder of Black Real Estate Dialogue. Listen, if you are interested in real estate, specifically out-of-state real estate, you gotta check out this podcast, man. And he, of course, lives in expensive LA, so he is here to tell us his journey on how he got into out-of-state real estate. I'm super interested to hear it because I also live in expensive LA. And he is here to drop some gems for y'all. So Sam, just do a quick, tell us, quickly introduce yourself. Tell us how you kind of got your journey started. Yeah, man, let's hear it.
Definitely. Well, thank you both for having me. I really, really appreciate it. Today's a podcast day. I was on one a few hours ago, so
Nice.
I'm feeling sharp and ready. But as you mentioned, Sam Dolciné, I'm a Haitian American, born in Brooklyn, raised in Brooklyn, and been living out in LA for about 8 years. And I started my platform, Black Real Estate Dialogue, almost 5 years ago, to give a voice to the Black community and to share stories for everyone's benefit from our perspective. So we can see that it's possible to invest in real estate, it's possible to develop, it's possible to be an agent, and all these things. And as we know, real estate is one of the greatest wealth builders in this country. In fact, most people's net worth is in the value of their home. So that was the start of that platform for me, and it's been amazing. It's been very rewarding. It's actually how me and Deshaun got connected, which is awesome. And also, I invest out of state. I've been investing out of state for almost 5 years. Started both of those things around the same time. And yeah, I'm a big advocate for investing in real estate wherever you are, especially if you are living in a place that's expensive. I encourage people to get out of your comfort zone and take that big city money and go out of state and make some cash flow and provide some clean and safe housing for people while you're at it.
Awesome, man. Awesome, man. So, yeah, we definitely want to dive deeper into just how you started your journey, how you got into real estate. I mean, you mentioned it a little bit, right? You saw that that's how a lot of people make their wealth through the bricks, right? That whether it's investing in real estate where they are or outside of where they are. But more specifically, how did you kind of get into the investing out of state? How did that journey start?
Yeah. So in 2018, I was at work, bored, something for whatever reason, I decided to check my retirement account. When I checked my retirement account, they had this thing that said, we can predict if you get whatever raises
Mm,
over a certain period of time and let you know what you might have at retirement. And so I pressed the button and it said at 67 and a half, you'll have X amount of dollars. And it said,
mm,
how much do you want to live off of per year? So I put what I thought was a modest number. And basically, the money was going to run out before I was likely to die. That's pretty much what was going to happen. And so I'm like, you know what? I need to figure out a way to make money outside of real estate. And so the guy in town who I knew who did real estate, I asked him, like, hey, I heard real estate is something that you can do. I heard you can make money. I want to buy a house. Like, what am I supposed to do? He said, fill this information out for me. I filled it out. He said, your debt to income ratio is too high and you don't make enough money. And so that didn't help matters, obviously. So I went back to the internet. I went back to Google and I discovered people investing out of state. I didn't know you could even do that because when I was growing up in Brooklyn, we lived in a 3 or 4 unit house in one of the apartments, and the landlord also owned the house next door, and he lived in one of the units there. So that's all I was exposed to. So I spent the next 12 months just devouring any piece of information I could find about investing out of state. and I got introduced to some folks out in Dayton, Ohio, which is where I invest. I ended up doing a market visit during the summer of 2019, did a lot of research, and I liked the information that I was receiving and what I was learning about the city. I thought it would be a great opportunity to get my investing started. And so a couple months after that, I was able to close in September of 2019 and bought my first property. So actually October. I think I closed like around October 15th, 2019. And it was off to the races from there. And when that happened, I knew that one, it was possible. I knew it was possible. And that everything people were saying was not possible. Like I'm like, you know what? Like if I could do this, someone whose family lost their home when they were kids, someone who didn't have anybody to look up to help them do this, and I could piece together information and just get across the finish line. I'm like, I know it's possible, and other people can do it too. So that's why I'm so passionate about real estate altogether, but especially out of state investing because it gives an opportunity for those who live in expensive areas. And the reality of it is, everybody can't move right now, right? People might be able to move a couple years down the line, but while you're getting ready for whatever is in the future, and if you can't leave where you're at, you can take your money and start generating cash flow by investing in other states.
So you said something that I really appreciate because you said that other people said that it wasn't possible, but you're proving consistently that it is possible. I feel like, and I just had this conversation with someone else a while, maybe like yesterday. Um, People place their failures on other people. If they failed at doing something, then they're like, "Oh, you can't do that. I've already tried this." And y- there's a fine line between taking advice and letting people deter you from your dreams. So I really appreciate the fact that you threw that message in there because just because somebody else couldn't do something doesn't mean that you can't. And doesn't mean that you can't teach other people to do it the successful way. So I think that that's pretty dope. And you told us how you what initially, and that was actually my next question. What initially drew you to investing? But you already answered that. You answered how you got started in Dayton, Ohio, also. But I would like to know, like, in doing this, what were some of your biggest challenges?
So the first big challenge, and I actually want to address the point you made. I
I'm
really
sorry.
appreciate you. No, you're good. You're good. I appreciate you bringing that up because I'll be honest, man. I'll be vulnerable here. Like it was hard when I started investing because I can't tell you how many people were saying like, "Well, how could you invest in some place where you don't know anybody? How could you invest in some place where you don't live? What if this happens? What if that happens?" Like a lot of people were putting those doubts into my mind. So if to be very honest and transparent with you, I told very few people until I closed because I didn't want anybody to tell me, don't do this, don't do that. I'm like, you know what? If I fall flat on my face, I'll take responsibility because I decided to do this and I'll figure it out. But I don't want anybody to tell me what not to do because I've been studying and trying to prepare for a whole year. And I don't want anybody's doubt to come into my mind. And believe me, a lot of people, and people, I don't believe anybody who said anything negative said it in a way. They said it because they care, right? And they're trying to protect me and things like that. But they said it after the fact. It's already done, right? But I really just want to agree with you because unfortunately, a lot of people put their fears and limitations and stuff on others and a lot of times unknowingly, which is even sadder, you know. But yeah, but
Quick, before
go
we
ahead.
even,
Yeah,
because I didn't know if you were about to jump to the question that Cornell just asked you, but I
yeah.
also wanted to say, Cornell, you had mentioned something, and I just wanted to double down on that. Like, it's not even just people impressing their failures, it's people impressing the things that they haven't even tried yet, right? It's things that they haven't even taken a chance at. They just feel like it might be too difficult, and that is what allows them to say you shouldn't try it because I don't think that I would succeed at it, or I don't think that you could succeed at it. Stuff that they've never even attempted, and that is where it really starts to kind of grind my gears. It's like you haven't even tried to do this, but you're telling me to not do it because you think I'm gonna fail. Something that you've never even attempted before. It'd be different if, cool, you try something, you learn from a mistake, and you're saying, this is what I did, this is what you should watch out for. And it's another thing to say, man, I heard on TV that that's hard. You might want to think about that before you try. Like, you have no idea, no
Bro,
idea. But
I agree 100%, and it's not just in things that it's not even just in like entrepreneurial stuff.
yeah,
Like, have you ever been at a job and tried to, get a promotion? You're working hard to get a promotion, and people are like, "Oh, you want to take on those responsibilities? That's too much." You see
yeah,
what I'm saying? Have you ever met the people that do that and they're stuck in the same position their whole career, 30 years, and they're about to retire, and they're in the same position the whole 30 years?
it's that fear, man.
That
It's that
fear.
fear. Fear keeps people stuck. Yeah, fear keeps people stuck. But all right, my bad. Back to the
No,
real
you're good.
estate.
No, that was a great segue.
That was definitely good,
That
man.
was a
Yeah, I
great
think with that, we're
segue.
just asking you, like, what were some of the challenges outside of, I mean, it because you mentioned, other people kind of keeping it to yourself and it being difficult just in general, right? Like,
Mhm.
but kind of dive into some of those difficulties, like what made it hard outside of just, kind of keeping it to yourself. And I'm assuming you might be saying like you didn't want to ask people for advice, to say people that probably told you not to do it. I'm not really sure, but what were some of those specific like difficulties, especially I'm imagining with out of state real estate? You're communicating with those people who you've never seen before, never met before, asking them to do things for you, trusting them essentially, and you've never even seen their face in person. You've only talked to them on the phone or through Zoom. And I don't know how often you did like trips to Dayton, but yeah, I'm interested to hear all that.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So I would say one, like now that I look back, I don't think I ever really realized this until just this conversation. It was very lonely because when I think about those 12 months when I was studying, trying to figure stuff out, like I found different people online and started following certain people's content and just like piecing stuff together. But I just didn't have somebody I can pick up the phone and call and say, hey, like this is going on, or what do you think about X, Y, and Z? Like I was the first person out of those who I know who ever did something like this. And it's not only it's one thing if I was like buying my first house or whatever the case is, and it's in my city, but I didn't know anybody who even thought about investing out of state. So it was lonely. It was very lonely because I'm like hoping I'm doing the right thing and following like what I'm seeing online and what people are saying as much as I can. And all of that helped. It absolutely helped me get to the finish line. But I kind of wish I had some sort of like support during that time. But I mean, I can't blame anybody. Nobody ever did it in my circle. So I couldn't be mad at anybody. And then also fear, right? Because I basically got to a point where I'm like, look, if something catastrophic happens, let's say the house is vacant, you know, and for whatever reason, let's say there's like a fire or it just blows up or something crazy happens to the house. I'm like, you know what? I have insurance. Hopefully I get payout and then I just got to move on. So I'm like, what's the worst case scenario? Then
Scenario.
there is no worst case scenario. Like it can't, I mean, if something happens to the house, like then I'm back where I started, which is fine. Whatever. I got a job, I can feed, I can put food on the table. I tried it, it didn't work. Whatever, I can try again. So I just had to really get into my mind, there is no worst case scenario. Whatever happens, I could learn from it. And then the other thing is trust, right? Because to your point, I'm communicating with people through like phone, through email, and there's all these stakeholders. You got the lender, you got property management, you got all these different people and stakeholders, inspector, and all these different people, right? And again, I'm new, so I'm asking them questions. I don't know if they're lying or not. Like I don't, like I don't. I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna just go through with it. Nothing seems super suspect, so let me just keep going until we close. And we closed. I was in Inglewood. I met a notary to do the documentation and sign the paperwork, and I was a homeowner. So it was crazy, but I wouldn't change it for anything.
That's awesome, man. Look, uh, so I definitely want to talk about the precursor to closing, right? So you are invested in Dayton, Ohio. When people say Ohio, it's like, cool. Dayton, Ohio, it's like, huh? Like where, you know what I mean? Like what made
Mhm.
you choose Dayton, Ohio? What type of research was done? Um, and even more so after you chose the city, what type of research did you do to choose a particular property? Like, what did you have to run numbers? Did you know that you were gonna like what the purpose of the property was, like fix and flip, buy and hold? Did you go through all that? So just kind of wondering those initial steps, right, before even closing, even finding the property. How did that happen?
Great question. Great question. So Dayton, Ohio is a city that you say to somebody, you're like, okay, cool, whatever. And for me, I think that's great because there's more opportunities for people who want to invest there. But
Right.
Dayton is located in a very interesting place. So Dayton is an hour away from Columbus, Ohio, which most people know. Ohio State is there, all that stuff, soccer team, everything. It's an hour away from Ohio, and it's about an hour away from Cincinnati. Cincinnati's about an hour south. Columbus, I believe, is northwest of Dayton, right? And I noticed a few things when I got introduced to Dayton. They had a downtown Dayton website. And on this website, they were talking about all the things that have come over the last 5, 10 years to that point and what's going to come to the downtown area. So the hundreds of millions of dollars that are being spent to revitalize the office space that's being leased out, companies that are moving there, startups that are there, new apartments and hotels and all types of stuff. And I'm like, okay. Then I learned about the infrastructure improvements, improving the bridges, putting bike lanes. And I remember when I went there and I'm like, all right, I have this list of all this stuff that's happening, and I'm driving around and I'm seeing it in real time. And a lot of people are very analytical about real estate, which is great. But I think a lot of that anecdotal and subjective factors is important too, right? So if you go to a place and you see the activity, right? You see people out living life. It's not a desolate place. There could be some good opportunities there. And I remember when I went even the second time after buying the property, I saw the next stage of stuff that I was reading about, right? And so at a high level, I saw a lot of new development coming to the cities, jobs coming to the cities, and the city investing in itself. Like a city wouldn't spend all this money to improve things and get things to be better if they didn't anticipate something coming, right? Cities don't just plan this stuff overnight. This stuff is decades in the plans, right? These things, like even, if we think about gentrification, all of our communities, we see it now. This stuff was in the plans for decades. Everything we see now, much of it was in the plan for decades. And as far as the neighborhood, so the first property I bought, it's minutes from downtown, and it's near an area called the Oregon District. But there's actually a lot of kind of like Victorian type of homes. That's what that reminds me of in the bordering neighborhood. And then in the Oregon District, there is like bars, restaurants, all type of stuff, and it's like minutes away from the property. And so it's very centrally located. It's near the downtown, as I mentioned. There's a bunch of stuff going on over there. It's near this Oregon district, and even when I went back, because I never saw the property before, I didn't see the property in person until like a year later. But when I went, I'm like, yo, like this is crazy. Like it's so close to all of this, and I was connecting a lot of dots, and I'm like, yeah, I know I made the right decision.
You didn't see the property until a year after you purchased it?
Yeah, I didn't. So what I did was, yeah. So what I did was I had an inspector. My inspector, I've used him. I've been working with this guy for almost 5 years, and he's excellent. He got referred to me by someone online, and he's been really good. So, you know, I didn't see it, and I don't personally. I don't think that's like a necessary part of the process. Like, I wasn't gonna fly there just to do like walkthrough or inspection or anything. I think the important thing is having a good inspector. And what I do now is I have like a long checklist, and I FaceTime my real estate agent, and we go through the whole thing. I didn't do that the first time, but that's what I do now, and I get a good idea of what the property looks like before I even decide if I want to proceed. And then if I do, I know my inspector. He's going to do his thing. He's going to evaluate everything with a fine tooth comb, and then we go from there. And then you mentioned also running numbers. Yeah, I ran numbers too. That's something that I learned over that time period, and I knew it was going to cash flow. And thankfully, I couldn't have predicted this, but 2 years later, the rents shot up like during COVID and all that stuff. So it's proven to be a really good investment.
I just all right. So just the way that you said, I wasn't a fly there just to do a walkthrough. I think I envy that type of trust, man, because I do not have it. Because I would have took the first flight out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I'm investing in something out of state. I would have been like, yo, I got to see what's out there. I'm definitely I don't see myself trusting a realtor because my thing is they're going to get paid whether I benefit from this property or not. So they might be skipping over stuff that I might need to see. So just you being able to trust someone else, I feel like that's a big deal. And for everybody that might not be a big deal. For me, that's a huge thing because I wouldn't have been able to just been like, oh, I'm not gonna fly out there. He's FaceTiming me. I'm good. I don't think I could do that.
Yeah. No, I definitely understand, and that's why I have a checklist. So like on the last property I bought, I was under contract 2 times before I actually closed, and what I realized was that there's stuff that we could have caught on that walkthrough that would have made me not even want to inspect the property, right? And obviously, certain things an inspector they're going to be able to evaluate. And so I kid you not, I have the screen recordings on my phone. We probably were on FaceTime like 30 minutes or so, but I'm having this checklist. I'm like, all right, we're going through this room. We're looking at X, Y, and Z. We're looking at X, Y, and Z. So I could have an understanding of what's going on because I'm not there. Right. And so, I like my real estate agent. I'm sure she's helped me out a lot and stuff like that. She even after the fact, after purchasing and things like that. But I need to do my own due diligence and I encourage people to do the same. Like you gotta double check stuff. You can't just assume that someone's looking at all these things. It might not even be their fault per se, right? Like she might not notice a small detail that I would even ask about, right? Because they might be looking at things at a high level if it's in solid condition and all those stuff, right? So, you know, I is I think it's fine to not necessarily trust everybody fully. And as an investor, home buyer, etc., you got to do your own due diligence as well and protect yourself because no one's going to protect you like you protect yourself, right? And so, that's what I would say on that. And it's interesting, like some people feel like they have to be the one to do every single thing for their property, even if it's local, and you really don't. Like, you really don't have to do everything. Right? You can delegate. It may not even cost you that much more money, if any. It'll save you time. And, I have a turnover that's happening right now. I'm not going to go. My wife and I thought about going out there. I'm like, you know what? We got too much going on. We're not going to go out. But, we have support out there. I have another investor out there who helps me out. She deals with the tenants with when the move outs, the keys and deposits and all that stuff, and then passes it over to me. Tomorrow she's gonna plug in my Spectrum box to get internet, and I'll have her there periodically as I'm turning it over, just to check in on things and do things for me. So you'd be surprised. Like there's a lot you could just delegate.
That's crazy because that was going to be the next question that I asked you. You invested out of state, and now you are currently investing and have been for the last 5 years. And you kind of answered it with, you have another real estate. Well, you said real estate agent or real estate investor who helps you out turn
Hmm.
things over. I was going to ask you about property management, right? Like
Yeah.
does how does that how did you figure out property management? How did you um, decide on a property manager? Was it referrals or yeah? How could talk about that a little bit? How you even found the real estate agent that can help you turn the properties over? Um,
Yeah, yeah. So I had a property manager for my first, I would say, year and a half. And the reason I went with this particular property manager is because they didn't charge a fee to place a tenant. And for those who may not know, typically a property manager will charge some percentage of the first month's rent. Some of them charge half of the first month's rent. Some of them charge the full thing. Some of them charge 75%. It just depends. But they charge that to place a tenant, basically. They did not charge me that. So I'm like, you know what? I'll go with them. If they suck, I'll just find somebody else. So I worked with them and it was terrible. They were horrible. Uh, they they just weren't good. What I realized was I have one unit with these folks. comes to and property managers, they make their money off of volume. Okay, so they charge, for those who may not know, 8 to 10% of the gross rent for their fee, and there might be some other fees in there, but they need volume. They need as many doors under management as possible. So if I have a concern and I have one property, they have another investor who has 30 properties, is giving them way more money on a monthly basis, pretty clear who they're going to prioritize. And so I felt that. I felt like I wasn't a priority, like my concerns weren't important. And I had an incident at the property where the fence completely collapsed and they never told me. The only reason I found out was their monthly report that they send. It was just a note. And I'm like, well, no one was going to call me and tell me about this. And so I reached out. They dragged their feet and eventually, got their people to fix the situation. And fast forward to now, I'm actually knocking that whole thing down as we speak. And I got somebody putting up a new fence. But, you know, it was just multiple issues. So I ended up letting them go. And a friend of mine had been pushing me. He's like, yo, just try it yourself. If you don't like it, you just find somebody else. If you can't do it, just find somebody else. And I've been self-managing ever since. And I picked up another one last year. I self-manage and it's fine. I think I'm all right at it. It usually it's pretty easy. Like if there's nothing wrong in the property, sometimes I go months not hearing from anybody. And when there's stuff that needs to be fixed, they reach out to me. If there's stuff that comes up, they reach out to me. And it's pretty hands off. So long as the property's in solid condition and the tenant is paying on time, then there's really no need to communicate at all. And occasionally I'll have somebody drive by, just like how do things look, whatever the case is. But for the most part, when somebody's in there paying and nothing is broken, it's out of sight, out of mind. But when there's turnover, that's when I got to do a lot of work. So I hate turnover. Um, but when there's turnover, I got to do a lot of work. When there's repairs, I got to coordinate that. But honestly, like once somebody's in and paying, I could just live my life.
Often visit. Just
I
because
the
you have
last
two
time
properties now in Dayton, right?
mhm. The
Yeah.
last time I went there was the end of 2020. My wife and I thought about going
What? Wow.
recently, but it's like, yeah, we got a lot going on. We got some other travel plans. We'll go another time. But yeah, so
Yeah.
it's been like 3.5 years. But you know, I have I have the properties inspected every year. Like, walk through just to make sure things are cool and things are being taken care of. And it's mostly fine for the most part. I have a vacancy, most recent place, which, as of last week. So I got to do some work now. So
Right.
I'll be doing
Right.
some work
Man,
over
but
there.
that's that's how the passive income starts, right? Like you get the ball rolling, but then once it's moving, you can just sit
Mhm.
back and let the money come in, right? And I feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, self managing the out of state properties. Yeah, I've never heard that. That's original. So when you get more, so I know you have two in Dayton. When you get more properties, say in that area, do you see yourself, you know, outsourcing that job?
Yeah, I do. And I think I'll do it in-house. I think I'll
Mm,
probably just have like VAs handling stuff. Um, because it's not that much until there's a vacancy. So for example, like with the vacancy, like all the stuff I have to do and people I have to reach out to, I could envision just having like a VA doing all that stuff and like me just giving the final approval on things. So yeah, like as I grow, I'll definitely fully step away from some things. Um, but I would do it in house. I don't see myself using a property manager again. I don't have any issue with property managers. I think there are some great ones and I recommend it for most people. But I'm kind of jaded, so I don't
no,
I just don't trust. I'm just kind of jaded, but it's a me thing. It's not a property manager thing. All like I recommend it actually for most people, but I'm good.
that's real. So quick, I do want to get into. I know we talked numbers a little bit. I want to more so get into the technicals of you even getting the property, right? Like
Mhm,
when it comes to purchasing a home, just in general, you got to get that down payment prepared, and you
mhm,
purchased an investment property, so we're talking minimum 20% down, right?
mhm.
Um, how did you go about finding the funds to even start that journey, right? We're talking financing, and there's a lot of ways you could do it. But how did you start your journey when you got your first property out of state? Where did you pull from? Was it savings, from retirement? Go
I
ahead.
love that question. I love that question. I really appreciate that question. So, if you remember earlier on, the guy I knew out here said I couldn't invest here because I didn't make enough money. My debt to income ratio was too high, right? And so I had to figure something out. So I did two things. The first thing I did was I put my student loans into forbearance, so I didn't have to pay for a year. And this is before we had like the however many years of forbearance we had recently. But
Mhm.
um, my student loans forbearance, and I was paying a lot of money. I was paying probably almost like $500 a month. Let's say like about $500 a month. Crazy. So I was able to save that 12 months. So that gave me six. And so I had to come up with, and the purchase price was about 90,000. So I had to come up with, say, like I think all in, I was probably like 23,000 or something like that. And so I'm like, all right, at this pace, based on what I could save, which is not much living here, it's gonna take some years for me to come up with that money. And so I'm like, okay, oh, I have a retirement account. Like, I don't know how this works, but let me call. I'm like, hey, how can I get access to some of this money? And they said, all right, well, you have two choices. Well, I was just glad that they continued the conversation. I thought they were going to say, yeah. So they said you can do two things. You can borrow up to 50% of your balance, or you can take with you just pay yourself back with interest over 5 years at like 6.5%. I came up to like maybe $300 a month, paying myself back into the plan. Or they said I could take everything out, tax penalty, and go on. So I was like, you know what? Let me run these numbers. And at the time, I don't know why, but my employer had a 3% match. So I was given, I think I was given six. And
You were
so
43.
yeah, and I don't know why. Like I think I went to some meeting at another job. The guy was like, "Oh, just give it a little bit more. You don't even notice it." I was like, "So here's the thing. I was giving 3%, right? And long story short, if I reduce that back to just the employer match, it would give me a little more money to be able to pay back into the plan. Because remember, it's like $300 a month I'm paying back in. So I'm like, you know what? If I look at my whole budget, I can afford to pay this back. I can get this money, and it will give me exactly what I need to be able to buy this property. And so that's how I was able to get the rest of the funds, and it sped up my timeline by several years, right? Because I'm like, yo, I got to make this thing happen. And thankfully, I was able to access the retirement account, and that's how I was able to get the funds. Like, there's no other way I was going to be able to
Man,
get it in that period of time. So, sometimes you got to think outside of the box, and sometimes desperation helps you to think outside of the box and try to turn over every stone within reason to try to
mhm.
get things done. So, thankfully, I was able to do that and make it happen.
Awesome. And it's crazy because we were literally talking about this in our last episode. We were talking about leveraging your employer, your 9 to 5, how they can be your first investor in you.
Yep.
Right? We
Yep.
talked about putting money or retirement matching. We talked about even just their normal paycheck and being able to like leverage that to kind of start kickstart your dream. Because a lot of people
Hmm.
don't know about the retirement, that they have access to the retirement. It's just put money in here and you can pull it out when you're 60 or 59 and a half. My bad. You can pull it out when you're 59 and a half. But before that, you can't touch it. Don't touch it. You're going to get hit with all these penalties and fees. But if you do your research like you did, or even just talk to somebody and have a conversation, you can figure out how to avoid paying so many of those penalties. And if you decide to do Roth over traditional, you've already paid the taxes on it. So I'm telling you, it's a lot of ways to get access to this money, especially when you got an employer who's going to match you in your retirement. That's free money right there. So
Yep.
yeah, I think that was a solid plan, bro. And
Thank
I'm
you.
happy that you were able to access that money to kickstart because, like you said, had you not, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. You know what I mean? Or
We
it would
would
have been a
not.
different conversation. So
It would have been. It definitely would have
yeah,
been.
awesome.
Right? Because you even feel like you could have done this without your job, like your 9 to 5.
No way. No way. Because I mean, I wasn't making money from anywhere else at that time. So it's like, absolutely not. I couldn't have done it without my job. And even though I didn't like that job that much, if I'm being transparent, like I haven't really had many jobs that I liked that much, but you know, you do what you got to do. You got to
Yeah.
eat. And so, you know, no, I couldn't have done it without my job. Absolutely not. And I think, and I went through traditional lending. So I went through like a regular lender and stuff like that. I didn't do like DSCR at that time. And so I needed my W-2s. I needed my pay
Mhm.
stubs. For the loan. So absolutely not. I could not have done exactly what I did without the job.
See, I like how you put that, and I love that you were transparent about that because, like a lot of us, I'm not gonna say, like a lot of people, they don't like their jobs. Not a lot of people like their jobs, but you use your job in a positive way in order to do something that you can appreciate, that you can be proud of, and that you can share with other people. You see
Hmm.
what I'm saying? So like
Yep.
even other people, like they might not like their job, but they can leverage it for something positive, something that they do like. You see what I'm saying? So
Yep.
like I really appreciate the transparency in that, and seeing the positive and the the optimism in what you did. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Definitely. Man, all right. So that's the real estate journey. I want to also start digging into the podcast journey. You started your podcast, and I can't even flex, bro. I started listening to you maybe like 2020, maybe. I remember when I first, well, maybe it was a while ago, man. When I first heard it, I'm like, yo, he lives in Inglewood. I live in Inglewood. Yo, he want to invest out of state. I want to invest out of state, and I've been rocking with you for a minute, bro.
Thank
So the
you.
fact that I like, I mean, of course, we live in the same neighborhood, so it was bound to happen. But nah, man, like when I first heard you starting your journey, it was definitely inspirational, right? Like it made me want to start that journey, right? Like I literally started an LLC out of state, like getting advice from your podcast and things like that. So with your podcast, the goal is to educate. I just want to hear more of like what inspired you to start that podcast, and then also kind of what is the driving force behind it, and of course, I want to hear like your favorite episode as well, right? If you have one so far.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, first of all, I didn't realize it had been that long since you've been tapping in. And I appreciate that. I really do appreciate your support. You know, I don't always get to get the feedback, right? And
Mhm.
you know, running into you was just like refreshing, man. So I just want to say thank you. I appreciate your support so much, bro. And to answer your question, so remember, I spent a whole year trying to figure out how to invest in real estate, and I was getting some good information. I was. However, the problem that I saw was that majority of the people delivering the information didn't look like me. And what I realized, I'm like, there's no way that black people aren't doing these things that I'm reading about. There's no way there's not black people investing, developing, and doing all this stuff. There's no way. We do everything, right? And I remember looking up in Apple Black Real Estate Podcast. Did you not? Couldn't find anything. So I had an idea. I told my friend, I'm like, man, what if what if I started a podcast? Like, I don't know how any of this stuff works, to be honest with you, but what if I started one to highlight our stories for the whole world to hear and learn from, like for everyone's benefit, from our perspective? He said, "Go do it." It wasn't a long conversation. He made the first mock-up of the logo. He made the current one. Like that's like a that's my close friend of mine. We walked in each other's weddings and everything, and I started from there. That was back in fall 2019. And around the time I was getting ready to close on that property, and I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to use social media. I didn't know how to do anything. Right. And so, you know, anybody who goes back to those days, you'll see the improvement in the content. Right. But I'm like, you know what? I feel compelled to get this stuff out there, and hopefully people will let me share their stories. And in terms of the favorite episodes, so episode number one, first guest I ever had, they're the Nelsons from Washington, D.C. And they gave me the opportunity to interview them. And I had no following. I had nothing. Like they were literally one. So, and they gave me the opportunity, right? So that's one of my favorite ones. And then I had an opportunity to interview Don Peebles in 2022, which was an incredible experience.
Hold on,
And
pause. On your podcast,
my podcast.
It's
Don
awesome.
Peebles, the billionaire.
Yes. Yes.
Yo, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It was nuts, man. It was in 2022. People were trying to do it in person, but a business partner of his, Victor McFarland, who's also another black developer that not a lot of people know, but he's done some amazing projects. They were just in two different cities, so we did it virtually. And I was in a studio locally that day, and we streamed them in. That was that was man, that was so crazy. Like I couldn't believe that that happened, and there's been others like that. So I've been a Lakers fan my whole life, and even when I was, even being from Brooklyn, and I got an opportunity to interview Devin George, who was part of that first three-peat championship team, and that was just unbelievable. And the way I got connected to him was just crazy. So I interviewed him last year, and then there's a brother by the name of Andre Barad, and I interviewed him this year in Houston. And the special thing about that episode was just
Say
some
yes to
people.
real estate, right? I think
Yes,
heard
real
about it.
estate.
Yeah, okay.
Some people are just captivating speakers, and he's one of them. And I don't know, the impact of that episode and just the feedback that we got. It's just memorable. It just stuck in my mind, and that episode took off on YouTube. And there's so many more. There's so many more. I've been so blessed to talk to some awesome people, and looking to crank up the interviews on the second half of the year and get out there a little bit more. And it's just been great. It's been great just sharing stories. It's been great just serving as a platform to get our stories out there and share what we're doing, and share that it's possible for other people to do it too. Like no matter where you started. And I think Andre, now that I think about it, he came from a very disadvantaged background, right? Like he shouldn't have made it. If you want to look at statistics and all those things, he
This
shouldn't have made it. But now, he has a real estate portfolio. He has a beautiful family. He's developing, building. He's an agent. He has a thriving business, and he still has a servant's heart to help other people, right? And so, that's just stuck in my mind, that interview. And it was just amazing. And then the last one I'll mention is one with the guy brother by the name of Demetrius Ballinger out in Houston. That was a very unique episode because it was my first ever episode live at a development site. He is building 84 units in Houston, but that's not it. Like we filmed at that, and we literally spent the rest of the day. He was driving me around to his other developments, and he's building like over 100 houses all over Houston. And so to me, that was mind blowing because I got to see it in person, right? I got to see the receipts in front of my face, you know, and that was just a crazy experience for me. And it was inspiring for me too, because it's like I want to shift more to that on the ground type of content. And to see that episode perform well, it felt really good. And yeah, he's doing some amazing things. And just every person I talk to, it shows what's possible. It's like, dang, like we really can do amazing things. And there's people here showing us how they did it, and people who come from backgrounds similar to many of us, right? And life challenges and all this stuff, and it's still possible. So yeah, I get so energized after every interview I do, and I get so inspired. So yeah, I'm excited. I got a couple coming up that I'll be doing in Atlanta next week, and yeah, just looking forward to a strong second half of the year, and more sharing stories. But I enjoy it. I really enjoy doing the interviews.
So with you interviewing people so inspirational, because that's big. Like, and you're being real humble about it, because that's yeah, that's huge, man. So with that, how do you see that impacting your community? You
Yeah.
see what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. So it's crazy. Like when I see comments, for example, the episode that went out a few days ago, when I see comments saying, I'm looking to develop, like, this is such an encouragement to me, like, people feeling inspired, like they could do it too. It's like, well, what if all these people are watching and they go develop, they go do their version of whatever they're watching in their community to whether it's like building affordable housing or whatever the case is. It feels great. It feels great. Like I want to inspire people. I want people to believe like you can do anything if you have the information, if you have the plan, you got somebody to help you, like you can do it. So, for me, like it's great. Like, I've had people say, I bought a house, and listening to the show helped me out and all those things. It really drowns out all the negative. It drowns out the negative comments, honestly.
I know
It
that felt
really,
good.
oh yeah, it feels great. And it encouraged me to do more because it's hard. Like most podcasts, I don't think make it past like first 7 episodes or something crazy like that. And it's hard. Like it's hard. And in podcasting, in content, it's very rare that your reward comes right away. Like it's been almost 5 years, and I'm now feeling like in certain aspects of it, I'm turning a corner, right? Imagine doing something for almost 5 years and you don't really see some of the fruits that you want until almost 5 years in. Then you start gaining some momentum and you can see it so far in the future, right? So it feels good. It feels good. I feel like this year turning a corner. I'm turning a corner that I've been trying to turn for a long time. So I'm very thankful for that. And none of it would be possible without the support of viewers and people checking the content out. And so, you know, very thankful for those who support.
And you're saying a lot of good things that I think that a lot of people can, take a lot of gems. You were just saying that, you know, for a while, like you have to do what you believe in consistently, even when you don't have a reward. You see what I'm saying? So you could be doing this thing for years and see no type of benefit, no type of traction, but you gotta believe in your craft. You gotta believe in your message and what you're sending to the people, and continuously do it, even if you're not getting monetary gain. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
But eventually, if your message is good, it's going to you're gonna get that traction
Yep.
that you're looking for. You just gotta stay consistent.
Hmm.
And so I guess this kind of like segues into what I wanted to ask. So what would you tell to the beginners? Like what advice would you have for beginners that are just starting? They're looking for that traction that you got, that it took you years to get. What would be the staple advice that you would give to them?
Yeah. Yeah. So would it be for those who are looking to start in real estate, starting like content and podcasting?
Ooh,
Sorry.
yeah.
Well,
All
You
right.
take like
Yeah.
yeah.
let's first
Yeah.
with the specific. Yeah, let's do the out of state real estate first because I know that
Yeah.
is already a tough journey for a lot of people. And
Hmm.
I think the biggest thing with that is the starting, right?
Yeah.
I think with podcasting they start but then they don't continue. So it's two
Mhm.
different problems that I think exist with what you did both successfully is starting the real estate journey and then starting the podcast and continuing to do it for the next 5 years. So with real estate specific, with out of state real estate, what advice would you give to someone who wants to start that journey?
So the first thing I would say is get your house in order. And so specifically, you need to learn how to manage your finances. And so for some people, they like spreadsheets. Some people like apps. There's plenty of them out there. Some people do cash. Some people do pen and paper. Figure out a system to manage your money, right? So once you have your budget, your fixed expenses, your variable expenses, debt pay down, whatever, how much can you save? And start getting into the habit of saving something. Obviously, everyone's income situation is different. Start saving something. Start getting to the habit of being responsible with your money. And if you are in a situation where you don't make as much money, when you don't have much wiggle room, we understand. What skills do you have? Could you get a better job? Could you get additional skills? There's a lot of different ways to improve your skill set that's not that expensive. So platforms like Coursera can provide like different courses and different type of things that can improve your skill set in certain areas. Or maybe you want to take a course or some sort of certification at a local community college, for example. But if so, the first step I would say is get your house in order, get your personal finances in order. If you don't have a budget, get a budget together. If you have one, revisit it, see how much you can save. I don't care if you can only save $50 a month, Just start with something. And if you feel and you realize you can only save $50 a month, that means you need to make more money. Based on your skill set, if you can't get a better job based on the skills you have, then consider things like Coursera, consider maybe a community college class or certification of some sort. Just explore different opportunities that can help you get a better paying job. Now, so that's the first thing. Like, and what if you do that, you get that better paying job, or maybe you had a job right now where you could save a whole lot more. You get your emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of your living expenses, your bare minimum to be able to live. And the reason I want people to do that is because you can invest in survival mode. You can invest if you're in a situation where if you lose your job, you're on the street next week. So you need at least that 3 to 6 month buffer. Now the problem with that is people are going to say that's people are going to say that's going to take too long. Well, is it worth it if it'll put you on the path to being able to build wealth in the long term? Because this is not about getting rich overnight. No one gets rich overnight. If anyone's telling you they can help you get rich overnight, you run. So get your house in order, and then once you have that together, all right, cool. I'm not in survival mode. Got my money on the side. Now start educating yourself on investing out of state. Just start learning about real estate in general. Start taking in some content. Familiarize yourself with different terms about real estate, the basics of real estate, right? And then start looking at different cities, right? The Midwest and the South have plenty of opportunities. Start browsing, start reading articles about development that's happening in various cities, right? And I could even suggest some cities you may want to look at. You can look at Dayton, Ohio. You can look at Cleveland, Ohio. You can look at Cincinnati, St. Louis, Missouri, Montgomery, Alabama, Indianapolis, Indiana, Kansas City, Missouri. Those are some cities you can look at and just start looking at the trends, right? Start educating yourself and then continue to save your money. Continue to save your money as you're learning, right? And then you build your team. Figure out a city you want to invest in. You find a real estate agent. Talk to the real estate agent, learn about the different neighborhoods, get into Facebook groups. All of these things you can do while you're saving and figuring stuff out. Get into Facebook groups in those local markets. What are people talking about? You don't even have to say anything. You could just lurk. You could just scroll. You could search for certain terms you're looking for and read what people are saying. And the point I want to drive home is like, it can feel like it's taking forever when you're saving money, when you're trying to figure out different things, but I want you to stay engaged. You stay engaged by participating and reading these Facebook groups, by reading these articles. Keep yourself stimulated and going so you know what the end goal is. Start looking at some properties, start analyzing numbers and things like that. And eventually come together and you'll have the funds. Maybe you even want to partner with somebody, partner with a friend or family member. You go in together. That could speed the timeline up. And there's countless like creative financing strategies and things like that, but you got to educate yourself. And you know it's hard. It took me a year to figure the whole thing out, but my motivation was like, I know what my family experienced. I don't ever want to feel that again. Now it's time for me to own something. Now it's time for me to turn stuff around for the future of the family. And so you got to figure out what that motivating factor is. And you're not always going to be motivated, but that's when discipline comes in, right? So that's a very long-winded answer, but on the real estate side, that's what I would tell somebody who's starting today.
Awesome, man. So look, we got get your house in order, get that emergency fund right, save money, educate yourself, talking real estate education out of state, research properties, and finally execute. Bro, I love it. I love it, man.
That was
That's
good. You
solid.
was thorough too. Yeah.
That's a solid plan, bro. Yeah, that was good. I'm over here taking notes. Look, nah, no, seriously though, man. That's some very solid advice because a lot of people skip steps, and then
Mm-hmm.
they get to the saving and learning, and then an emergency happens and they got to drain their savings, or they research, but then they get stuck on research and they never execute. So it's
Mm-hmm.
good to have these steps laid out. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
your story is one that is basically a testament to these steps working flawlessly. So, nah, I love it, man. For
Thank you.
sure.
Thank you. Want me to speak to the podcast side?
Yeah, so this one is going to be two. Like, I think I want to hear the journey to getting started for beginners. And then also, I want to hear like the long term vision. Where do you want Black Real Estate Dialogue to go? It's already done amazing things. Like, you are
Yeah.
definitely reeling in some of the big hitters, right? And you are exposing people who would not normally be able to hear this information to the information, right? When you researched Black real estate podcast and found nothing, you created. And when you created, you brought together a culmination of Black individuals who are doing amazing things in real estate. And I think that that in itself is a beautiful story. Like reaching out to Andre, who was in Texas, interviewing Don Peoples. It's just, and I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So it's like, not only did you find a gap in the system, something that did not exist, but you created and you exceeded by bringing together all these amazing people that are doing amazing things on a single platform for people to just hit play and listen to. So, one, I just applaud you for that, bro. That is huge. And I'm excited to just see more of Black Real Estate Dialogue. But yes, advice to beginners who are starting a podcast journey. And then, of course, I just want to hear your vision for what Bread is going to be, you know, in the near future, far future, really.
Yes, thank you for that. I appreciate it. So, the first thing I would say, if you are someone who is interested in doing a podcast, if it's not on a topic you care about, don't even bother. Because I'm going to be like very transparent right now. There's going to be many moments, many times when you don't feel like doing what you need to do to keep the things going. Right. Earlier, I talked about doing things for a lot of time and not receiving the fruits that you're hoping for. Right. I'm just gonna be honest. Like, I don't always feel like putting out content. I don't always feel like editing. I don't always feel like reading the news or seeing. I don't. Sometimes I feel like I don't feel like doing anything. But then that's where discipline kicks in, right? If it's something you care about, you'll have the discipline. You should have the discipline to the greatest extent possible to just do what needs to be done when it needs to be done, right? It takes a lot of time for me to research, to prepare for interviews and things of that nature. But thinking about the audience and what they get out of it. And I'm like, you know what? All right, I'm feeling tired. I don't feel like it, but it needs to get done. So the first thing is you choose a topic you care about. The second thing is what is going to be the format of the show? Is it going to be an individual podcast? Is it going to be a guest podcast? Is it going to be a hybrid model where some individuals, some guests? What format do you want to start with? And the format can always change, right? So that's the second thing that you want to think about. The third thing is, do you want to do your podcast virtually? Do you want to do your podcast in person? Do you want to do a hybrid? That's something else that is important to consider as well. And if you are going to do it virtually, then I recommend getting a USB mic. I think I have a Shure SM something. But you want to get a good mic. They're usually pretty affordable and you can carry it around, right? If you're on the road or whatever the case is, you can just throw it in your bag and you're good. And I would say too, you know, in person is great, but you don't have to start out that way, right? I, yeah, you don't have to start out that way if you don't want to. If you don't have the means to, I certainly didn't. I didn't start in person interviews until 20. The first one was in 2022. And then last year was the first year that every interview was in person. So, you know, you can always change and evolve, right? So that's the other thing I would say. The fourth thing I would say is what I would actually recommend before you start the podcast is to start building an audience. And what I mean by that specifically is start get on your socials, like whatever your niche is. Let's say your niche is maternal health. I don't know why that popped in my head. Maternal health.
Okay. That's important, man. It's important.
Probably conversations that I've been having lately with my wife, but maternal health, right? Start putting content about maternal health. Start sharing people's stories, even if you don't really know kind of like what the angle is. Start putting the content out there, building the audience, and building a buzz around like what it is you do. What's the benefit of that? Once you start teasing the podcast, you have an audience built in already who likes your content, and now they can watch it in another form. If you've already started both simultaneously, it's fine. But if you haven't started anything, I'll recommend like building the audience first. Outside of that, I would say you want to figure out what is your cadence going to be. Is it going to be a weekly podcast? Is it going to be a bi-weekly podcast? Is it going to be monthly? Like how often is it going to be? And I would say do your best to stick to that. And you know, how long do you want the episodes to be as well? You know, some podcasts are like kind of quick hits. So, there's different forms. Like some are like longer, some are shorter, some just clip stuff up throughout the week. Like it just all depends, right? So I would say that's something else you want to think of as well. And have fun. Have fun too, right? Started it because it's a topic you care about. So have fun with it as well. And don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to try different stuff. Like, oh my gosh, I've tried a million different things and failed within what I'm doing. And there's no downside to it, right? Like you just try something else if it doesn't work. So I could probably speak on that for like an hour, but I'm gonna stop.
Might have to do another episode on that one, man.
Happy to do it. Happy to do it.
Yeah. But yeah, so then that amazing info we got. Uh, make sure that you're doing something you love. Um, decide on the format: in person, hybrid. Um, build an audience. If you haven't started, but it's okay to start the podcast while building an audience. Decide on the cadence. And I think the most important thing is have fun. Like this is yes, you want it to be something that can generate revenue, but people can feel energy, even though it is through like a Spotify or a YouTube. You can tell when someone actually enjoys the thing that they're talking about. And I think that in itself can also bring a pure audience, right? They're coming to see not just you, not just to get information, but to also feel that energy that you're delivering. So I think having fun on your podcast is one of the most important things. Just making sure that you're actually enjoying yourself while you're doing it. So now, again, solid information, bro. I'm gonna have to type these up, bro. This is good stuff,
So,
man.
so I guess I would like to know like what's next for you? Like, do you have like upcoming? Because it seems like you're doing a lot of big things, man. So like, what's next? What upcoming projects do you have? What do people have to look forward to with what you have going on?
Definitely.
Yes, yes. So, man, I have a lot of big goals and dreams. And one of the things that I wanted to test out was like on the ground interviews, right? It's more work. It's like coordination and different stuff. But I would love to have like a Netflix show, right? Or Hulu or something. And I'm like, you know what? I don't have no production background or nothing, but let me see what I can do on my level. And to see the episode that went up a couple days ago, like do so well on YouTube, I'm like, all right, let me try to at least do a few more of these, right? So I have one coming up next week that I'll be doing it in Atlanta. It'll be on the
Okay.
ground at a development, and I want to do more of that kind of content. And of course, I'll like still do like a lot of in studio interviews, but I want to do a few more of those on the ground type situations this year, and dive a little bit more into that. And then in the future, I would love to do like series, documentaries, like stuff like that, because they're our stories aren't told enough, and the stories of us that are told it's entertaining and everybody taps into various things, but very seldomly is this stuff that could actually benefit us in the long run, right? And home ownership, even if somebody's not an investor, even if somebody owns the home where they live, like that's an important thing, in my opinion. I believe it's crucially important. And people are feeling hopeless now because things are so expensive. So for me, I want to put out messages of hope and encouragement and helping people think outside the box. I've done some videos on just like different like housing options and so just looking to test out some more content like that and just reach as many people as possible. And you know, eh, if you keep going, you never know what'll happen, right? I didn't think anything when I started, right? I was just like, you know what? I think this is something that's important that I want to do, and for whatever reason, I kept going. Um, and I'm excited to see what's to come. It's been a beautiful journey. I'm very blessed, and we'll see what the future holds. But yeah, I want to do some more on the ground content, and love my dream is to do like a series, like have like a Netflix show or Hulu. There's a one series that really inspired me. I'm so mad I forgot the name of it. It's a chef from LA, and she had a series on Hulu where she was going around to different different um different parts of the US and trying like different kinds of cuisine. So like she was in she was in Oklahoma, for example, trying like in indigenous cuisine. I'm not sure if that's what it's called, but you know what I mean. And just going around the country and just to see her story, it was so inspiring. And I've been to her restaurant here in LA, and I'm like, dang, like when I see people doing stuff, I don't hate. When I see people doing stuff that I want to do, I'm like, dang, like the way my mind works, like maybe I'm naive.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm a little bit delusional. I'm like, dang, like she could do that. Like I could do that too. Like I saw there's a podcast I follow. She got a book deal and she she got a really great advance. And she spoke about it on her podcast. I purchased her book and I'm like, have it somewhere over here. And I'm like, wait a minute, like what? You got that? Dang, that means I could do it too. Like that's just how I see stuff. Like I'm a little delusional. Maybe I'm a little delusional. I'm like, yo, like
that's
if I
not
see you
illusion.
doing it, like you could. That means it's possible. I could do it too. Like that's crazy, you know. So yeah, that's just how I think, man. I think big. And here's the thing: you think big, you aim big, you try to do like the greatest thing possible. Like wherever you land, it's gonna be pretty good because you thought you could do so much greater, right? So I don't know. This is how I'm
I,
wired.
I feel like productive people think that way because one thing that I can't stand is when I'll see somebody doing good and I'll be like, man, they doing this, and then other people will be like, comparison is the thief of joy. And I'm like, it's not. I'm not thinking of it in a bad way. I'm thinking like if they doing that. Like I think the same way. I'm like, yo, that means I got to step my game up. It's not about comparing myself and thinking, "Oh, I'm not as good as them." It's like, "Dang, they doing that. I need to okay, let me step my game up so I can do better." And it's like people don't think like that. And people always think, "Okay, they're doing good. Why can't it be me?" I don't know. Like they like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh.
It's
I don't know what they got going on.
it's a mindset, bro. It's a mindset. It's a lack of confidence. That is really what. That's really where that comparison is a thief of joy thing came from. People not believing in themselves. They're instead living constantly their life through someone else's eyes and envying them on
Man,
what they got. You know what I mean?
I'm
It's
glad you said that, bro,
yeah.
because that bugs me, bro. Like, yeah,
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 that's where it comes
yeah,
from, man.
yeah. Just how I see it, man. Like
yeah.
I get inspired, right? As a I guess I can consider myself somewhat of a creative, but inspiration isn't
You are. You
right.
got a podcast.
And
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
I
uh,
just thought about that. Yo, that's a shirt idea, man. Comparison is a thief of joy. Like cross that out and put comparison as a fuel of success or something like that, bro. That
oh, you
should
got
be
to
a
drop
t-shirt.
that.
You wrote
Drop
these
that.
long, lengthy essay
It's
types,
already a thing. Comparison is a thief of
bro.
joy.
Yeah.
Comparison
That
is
thing
the
gonna be.
fuel to
You gonna have
success.
that,
Come on,
that extended, bro. It's gonna be on your
comparison is the fuel to.
cross out. No, it's not the thief of joy. It's the nah, bro.
Nah, but
But nah, it's
that's
good
like the
concept. You
mindset.
just gotta narrow it in.
Oh yeah, nah, for sure. I got you. I got you. I got you. But yeah, nah, Sam,
Oh,
I'm telling
I
you,
got an
that is
idea.
what's up.
What about what about comparison crossed out and maybe under it inspiration or I don't know, like whatever the opposite would be.
Mm.
Like I'm not comparing myself, but I don't know.
Inspired by it. No, that's real. That's real. We just have to find a way because it could be that simple.
I got a better one. We can just put comparison is the thief of joy, but cross out thief and put fuel and then cross out joy and put success. So comparison is the fuel to
Fuel to
success.
success.
There you go, man. Is this still one phrase?
Or use because
Or
it
such a
can be.
comparison. Maybe that's the word that people probably want to change.
Bro,
Comparison.
y'all are like on the verge, bro. Like on the verge of
It's
something
right
amazing.
there. Look, I gotta
It's
write this
there,
down.
bro.
Look.
Yeah, it's there. Y'all are on the verge of something amazing. But yeah, that could be a dope shirt, and it would probably sell out. Like if y'all did, if this drop shit, y'all be a millionaire if y'all sold that. So yeah, no, that's a good one
For
for
sure,
real.
for sure. But look, man, Sam, this was a tremendously insightful episode. I can't even really use words to explain how important it was. Like the information you dropped, the gems you dropped, the inspiration that I know this episode is going to create for everyone that tunes in. Before you go, we always ask our guests to just drop one like line, one phrase, one kind of just banger before you leave. So if you had to tell the people one thing, what would it be?
Ignore the news. I cover the news every single day, right? I talk about it, but it's important to take things into context. Whatever you see in the news is not necessarily prescriptive. And what mean by that is it doesn't necessarily apply to you. Like even there's negative stuff in the housing market. Florida's condo market is in the tank, which is a fact. Look at it from how you can learn from it. Don't look at it like doomsday, right? Figure out what you need to do, right? So that's what I mean by ignore the news. And I'm saying that as somebody who shares and takes in the news every single day. It's entertainment to an extent as well. So you just got to take all that into account. I mean, what I do is entertainment, right? But look at it within context and look at what you can take from it that can help to push you further. And the news will tell you that it's a terrible time to buy. And for some people, and depending on the situation, it is. But for some people, they can still maneuver within this current market. And if you are somebody who can, don't eliminate yourself from contention because of what the news is saying. Okay. And so that will be the first. That's the first thing that came to mind. So that's what I would drop for the news.
Nice. There you go. Be above the noise, folks. All right, man. Sam, where can they find you?
Yes, so you can find me at Black Real Estate Dialogue anywhere. So on Instagram, on YouTube, all the social medias. You could tap into the show if you'd like to as well on YouTube and Apple and Spotify. You want to check out resources or join the email list or whatever it is, or grab a freebie or something, you can go to blackrealestatedialogue.com and all the information is there. You can reach out to me and I would love to hear from you.
Awesome. Awesome. We love to hear it. All right, man. Cornell, you got anything for him before we go?
No. I just like to say thank you, man. Thank you for you know, blessing us with your presence and your information. This was good stuff, and I'm not gonna lie, you motivated me. So I know anyone listening to this should be motivated also, just with what you speaking on how it takes time. Like whatever you're doing is going to take time. It's not going to come overnight, even though you're very passionate about it and you feel like you're putting in, like, just keep going, keep your head down, just keep pushing, and everything will come together. So I appreciate your messages that you share with us and our audience, and thank you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm so thankful to be here and be on the platform. And Deshaun, I'm so glad we ran into each other at 6 o'clock in the morning at the gym. And thank you for stopping me too, and just chatting. And you know, however I can help, if you want to have me come back, like I'm more than happy to. And keep doing what y'all are doing too. I think this was episode 40 or 41, and
40.
be 40. Be proud of yourself because most podcasts probably don't even make it to 10, right? And so, uh, keep going. You never know. You never know what can happen. So, salute to y'all for what you're doing too.
Appreciate you, man. Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna just echo what Cornell said. We really appreciate you coming, Sam. This has been a amazing episode again. Lots of gems dropped, and yeah. Look, I'm gonna see you back in the lab, bro. For sure.
Yes, sir. We gonna
Stay
when
up.
you get back. When you get back, we'll get something on the calendar, man, and we'll get a workout in
Absolutely.
together. Hopefully you don't. Hopefully I could still walk home once I'm done working. You be you're like you're
Oh, working out with Deshaun, you'll be all right.
You gotta be kidding me, Cornell.
Playing, my man does his thing, man.
Have you ever
I'm
seen
not gonna
that
lie.
episode of SpongeBob when he was trying to lift the weight and his arms fell off? You remember that? That's
I didn't
Cornell,
see
bro.
I'm trying to give you a compliment, man, but now I can't even do it.
Nah, man, nah. But for real, appreciate you, Sam.
Oh
And
yeah.
again, everyone who's listening, thank you again for tuning in. And we will catch y'all next week.
For sure.
Peace out.
Peace. Thank you, Sam.
No problem.
Appreciate you, Sam.